Radio Raheem here with John David Jackson, trainer of Sergey Kovalev. A huge fight, not just for the fans, but for the careers of all involved. When you look at this matchup, first of all, not from the fighter's perspective, but from the trainer's perspective. Both you and Virgil Hunter are very respected in the corners, but there's got to be something of a rivalry there. When you look at like how you two approach fights, how you train your fighters, how do you see the matchup between you and Virgil?
You know, the matchup between Virgil and I actually is pretty unique and pretty different. Like you said, Virgil is very well respected in the game of boxing. He's had one very, very good fighter who's taken him to the top. Cast of others who really haven't, but they've, he's done his best. To me, it's like what I tell people is, not all fighters get what you're trying to, the message you're trying to convey to them. But Ward has definitely gotten the message, and he's done it well. Trainers, we all have egos, and we all want to be the best. So this fight here will cement, I guess, who has the best pound-for-pound fighter today.
I was talking to Freddie Roach a couple days ago, and he said whoever has the best fighter, that's trainer of the year. This year, apparently, who had the best fighter was Abel Sanchez, because he's named trainer of the year. And I'm sure you're aware of his comments that apparently he's also got your fighter. He feels like he trains Kovalev and should really get the credit for the success Kovalev has had.
Well, let me say that about this. When I got Sergey, he couldn't fight the way he fights now. He doesn't fight half the way he fights now. Listen, Abel's a good man. I like him. But for him to say that, that's wrong. Abel, whatever you taught him, it wasn't enough because I polished him. He definitely learned a lot under my tutelage, and he's a better fighter, a more rounded fighter. And even he said from his own mouth that Abel didn't teach him much. So, having said that, I rest my case. I'm going to leave it alone. But as far as teaching him, I've definitely taught him more than he knew when he first came to me.
Most people think that if Andre Ward's not the number one pound-for-pound fighter, he's certainly the top two. What have you taught the Crusher that allows him to best possibly the number one fighter in the world? How polished is he right now?
He's very polished. He's very, he listens. Sergey's very knowledgeable in boxing. He understands the game of boxing. And he's already formulated his own fight plan in his mind. What I did was I came in and said, listen, do what you want to do, but let's implement what I believe will beat Andre a lot easier, and let's put them together and make it work so that night, on the 19th, you become victorious when it's all said and done.
You mentioned that the Chilimba camp didn't go the way you wanted. He wasn't listening. You knew that this fight was on the horizon. It's a huge fight. What did you have to do to make sure that you had his ear this time? Do you? And what kind of changes have you seen in him as a fighter for this camp?
Well, luckily for me, I didn't have to make I didn't say anything to put in his ear. The Chilimba fight did it for me because he realized that fight, he wasn't properly trained the way he should have been. He was wearing too many hats. He was manager, ticket seller, friend of everybody in town. Too many people pulling at him. So fighting at home was, even though he says it was nice, it was a distraction. This camp here, he's listening and he's doing what he's supposed to do physically and mentally to get prepared for this fight.
Technically, this is obviously going to be a tough challenge for Kovalev. There's no way around that. Most people consider Andre Ward the smarter fighter. Do you agree with that? And if that is the case, how are you going to physically best Andre's ring generalship intelligence experience?
I wouldn't say that. But listen, I give Andre all the accolades he deserves. He's one of the best fighters today. He's one of the smartest fighters in the ring today. Not one of the most exciting fighters, not the most dangerous as far as physical, but mental and doing things strategy-wise, very dangerous. People kind of sell Sergey short. They sold him short against Bernard. But listen, Bernard is a crafty old veteran. The difference between Andre and Bernard is Bernard is older. He can't pull the trigger like he once did. Ward's been out 5 years, basically. He's had 3 fights in 5 years. His best days are behind him. I don't care what he says, he's crazy. No. You're here. But now you've peaked, and now you're starting to go down slowly. I'm not saying you're done. You still got speed. You still got nice power. But your best days are behind you. 168, you move. 168, you're fluid. You did things a lot better, a lot easier. You don't move now that you're heavier. You kind of creep a little bit, and that's okay. I want you to creep because Kovalev's going to creep right along with you and offset whatever you're going to do to make the fight easier for himself. People say Andre is, and I say this myself, he's very intelligent in the ring. If you don't give him credit for that, then something's wrong with you. He's a very intelligent guy, but his best days are behind him. Now, think about this. When he came out the amateurs, he was 178. So he went on to 168. He was the bigger man because every time he rehydrated, he went to the ring the bigger guy. This fight here, he's not the bigger guy. This is the bigger man. Sergey's the bigger man. Sergey's the bully for this fight. So you have to, I think you have to do a little bit differently to try to offset Sergey's strengths. So it's going to be an interesting fight for both fighters because on one hand you got the very smart, intelligent guy who's going to try to be evasive and set traps. On the other hand, you got a guy who's very strong and very smart also, who's going to also try to set traps and offset your traps.
You mentioned Bernard Hopkins. There was a lot of talk before the Hopkins fight, but a lot of people don't know that they've grown close. They consider each other friends now. And Andre Ward has mentioned that he's going to employ some Hopkins strategy against Sergey. Has Hopkins been involved at all in camp? Do they talk about strategy? Are they close like that? Would you allow that?
Well, first of all, I have no choice to allow whatever happens. Andre's a grown man. Bernard's a grown man. No, Bernard and I are I think, a lot closer than Ward is, because Ward said a few things he doesn't care what he said a few things about Bernard that he didn't care what Bernard said about certain things. Bernard and I are close. As a matter of fact, after this fight, I leave and go straight to Philly to get Bernard ready for his last fight. So I believe Bernard and I have a closer bond, a closer friendship. All the talk is there. I think on the night of November 19th that Sergey's gonna, as soon as he hits Ward, all the talk Ward been talking is going to change, because guess what? He's going to realize what the other past opponents have said is true. That I didn't realize this guy can hit so hard.
But has Hopkins talked to you or Kovalev about strategy, considering that you may be facing someone using his strategy?
Sergey and him may have talked. I don't really get into that because I already have in my mind what my guy needs to do. And I let my fighter formulate his own plan, and what I do is implement what I want to do and put together and make it work. So if he talked, maybe he and Bernard may have talked. Bernard and I don't really talk about it. I don't talk to fighters about other fighters really and what they're going to do, unless they really want to tell me something that they think I may not have heard before. But I understand this game. I like Ward's style because it was something that I was very intelligent in the ring myself, and that's what I did. I broke it down systematically. Ward does that. So I understand his game. I understand it all too well. So my thing is to offset what he does, neutralize his strong points, and expose his weak ones.
And lastly, we see Lomachenko here today. He's got a fight coming up right after your fight. Well, how do you see Walter's Lomachenko playing out?
That's an interesting fight. Walters is strong, but I think that Lomachenko can use his boxing skill. He might be able to offset that. It's an interesting fight. I really haven't really studied it much, but hopefully it's a good fight for the fans to see, because they deserve these fights that are coming up, and hopefully they're all good fights that make leave everybody breathless and say, man, we need more fights like these.
And lastly, your friend Bernard Hopkins is finally calling it a career. One more fight at the Forum. That'll be out just before the end of the year. What do you think about him staying in the game this long? How does a fighter preserve himself like that? And how do you see this fight was apparently like an 8-hour concrete buster going for his last time out?
Well, I'm happy for him. I'm happy that he's going to say this is his last one. He's had a wonderful career, very distinguished. It's a lot greater than he probably even anticipated it would be for himself. This is time to let it go and enjoy life. Get this last one, get this win under your belt, and then let's go home and say, hey man, you had a wonderful career, and wait for those 5 years to go by, and so you can be inducted to the Hall of Fame, and keep doing your thing. Stay with the promotional part, and keep helping build these guys' careers up. And he's a wonderful guy, man. He's a real good credit to boxing, man, and I'm glad from everything he's done, everything he's accomplished. I'm glad that we're friends. We were once foes. He was once my chief sparring partner when I was champion. So we've come a long way together. I'm glad to see him evolve from just a rough, rugged little kid. I call him a kid, but I'm only 2 years older. But to see what he's become now and how smart he is, and that speaks volumes for him as an individual and his ability to think inside the ring.
Well, we appreciate your ability to think inside the ring and in the corner. I've seen your work. Everyone has. It's a pleasure to watch you. We'll see you on November 26th in Las Vegas. Radio Raheem with John David Jackson.